Now, we'll talk a little bit about Herb in a moment, but first, on behalf of Gene, I have a dramatic announcement to make. You know, someday, at some point, Herb Clark will retire from television broadcasting in Philadelphia. And the station has gone on a nationwide talent search. And we have, after numerous hours of rehearsal and auditioning, found the man who may very well and probably will sign a contract tomorrow to become Herb's full-time replacement and successor, Mr. Les Wass. Les? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I just want to know who his agent is. So I know who I have to deal with.
Actually, Larry, I signed that this afternoon. It's really a delight for me to be able to follow in the footsteps of Herb Clark, a man that I've admired and respected for so many years, and especially at a time like this when there are so many changes taking place in the TV weather forecasting business. The focus now is going to be on cheap. What I mean by that is cheap. And especially at CBS, because, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said CBS. In fact, I was just hired today. I don't want to be fired before I start working there. So please forget the fact that I even mentioned CBS. Now, among the many things that are happening, and as you know, there's a very bad situation in broadcasting right now. The recessionary situation with all of us is nowhere near the bottom that broadcasting is experiencing, and so they've got to cut a lot of corners, and they were doing it, and they're doing it very well. One of the things that they're doing especially is to do away with the exclusivity situation, which means that no station will have exclusive AccuWeather, exclusive this weather, and so forth. They're all going to come together and have the same weather. And nobody knows the difference anyway. Nobody aware of the difference. This means that, for example, if it's going to rain on channel 3 tomorrow, it's going to rain on channel 6. Another thing that's going to happen, the 5-day forecast is now out. 1 day. With the exception of a station in York, Pennsylvania, they're going to continue to maintain the 5-day forecast situation, but they're only going to present a weathercast once every 5 days. The most dramatic changes, however, are going to occur in the area of graphics and sets and all that stuff. You've seen all this stuff, and you don't know what it means. It doesn't do anybody any good. You see clouds dancing across the screen. By the time the weathercast is over, they danced off the screen. You have no idea where those clouds are. You want to know what's happened in the air. All we want to know, really, is what we're supposed to wear tomorrow morning when we go to work. Nothing else. That's all anybody really wants to know. And so they're going back to basics. And I can remember the very earliest days of television when John Facenda did the first 11 o'clock news. When he was the host of that show, and I say host because back then the only things that had anchors were boats. When John Facenda did the news only lasted 10 minutes back then, and so they didn't have much time for the weather. And so the weather forecasts were very short and sweet. For example, one that I can remember is it's cloudy out, it's going to be cloudy tomorrow, maybe it might rain. For a further update, stick your head out the window in the morning. But that was the weather forecast, and we loved it. But this was the kind of forecast back then, so they're getting back to the basics now, and it's especially good for me, because now I don't have to worry about all these graphics that have been here heretofore. For example, the fronts, the backs, the fronts, the fronts, the backs, what's happening over the plain states, what's happening over the more complicated states, and all that stuff. Barometric pressure, for example. How many people in this room our experience with what barometric pressure is all about and care. 0%. I thought it would be more than that. All these years, Herb Clark, for example, has been telling us what the barometric pressures are, and nobody cares. Herb is a nice guy, and he feels that if there's one person out there that wants to know what the barometric pressures are, he's going to tell me. We have enough pressure as it is now, so we have to. Now, we're getting back to basics, and they're doing away with what I just mentioned, all these great, wonderful. And a crayon, and a pointer, which I have in my pocket. Okay, now. I hope I get as much applause as the microphone. Now these are the tools, and it's something I'd like to. I see a lot of people in here in the audience right now. There's a fellow right over here I noticed, and a couple of others who were all auditioning for this job that I got. And 973 altogether were there, and I'm the one that got it. And a lot of people assume it's because I have such tremendous talent. Well, I can tell you this, it was more than just the tremendous talent. It happens that I came to the audition with my own easel and sketch pad and crayon and pointer. So you know when we say cheap, we're really talking cheap. Now this, we take the crayon.
Is Herb listening?
And, you should be. The first thing we must do when we get the sketch pad out and we're on the air is to draw a map of the United States. And here is Philadelphia. Make sure that you include the Great Lakes. Because otherwise it could be like Bangladesh or someplace. Also, I must tell you that you people who are prospective weather forecasters for television, to buy this, you ought to get this before you audition next time. You'll stand a much better chance. I mean, it happened to me, and I can tell you this, and I'm not afraid to tell you because I've already got the job here. But you can get the sketch pad and the easel and the crayon at any art supply store. And also, this you can get, oh, by the way, this is essential. This is the pointer, as I mentioned before, and this is essential because you use this to point at the various things that you're talking about. The only alternative is to use your finger, and if you happen to use the wrong finger and the direction you're pointing happens to be up, it could be a pretty bad looking thing. So you have to have the pointer. And for you Kmart shoppers, this is like 79 cents. It's compact, it folds up very nicely, you can stick it in your pocket when you're not using it. It's very practical. And when you're ready to use it, just pull it out to its full length, and once you get it out, just pull it out to its full length. There you go. Now, I would also recommend that while you're at the Kmart, you might want to pick up a little can of 3-in-1 lubrication oil. And when you draw the map, you have to put in here a couple of fronts. You have to have fronts. Now, so you draw 3 lines, anywhere at all. It doesn't matter where you draw the lines because nobody will know 5 minutes after any Some of you will probably prefer curvy lines. I like straight lines. 3 is generally proper. You have a warm front, a cold front, and a front that's just right. This is Philadelphia. Now, Since I know that so many of you here are future weathercasters, I know that you have certain questions to ask, and we're going to have a little question and answer period in a few minutes. But in the meantime, there are certain questions that I know you're going to ask, so I might as well just answer those right away. But one of those questions is, where do you get the information? You can't have a weather show without knowing the information, what's going to do it, and so forth. I'll tell you a secret, and you're going to be very surprised. You're going to be shocked. But I just thought of something. I don't think I can tell you this because I think the weather people who are doing this now wouldn't want this secret revealed. And it might be embarrassing to them. I don't know.
Oh, no, you got it.
Do it anyway?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. If everybody, if you promise not to tell anyone outside of this room, if everybody will please raise their right hands for a second. Just like, and repeat after me. I swear not to reveal what I'm about to hear with regard to where the weather people get their information so they can talk to the people at home. Very good. They get it by calling 936. Why not? It tells you everything in 1 minute. So what the temperatures are now, what they're going to be tomorrow, when it's going to rain, and so forth, and everything we want to know, so we know how to dress when we go to work tomorrow. Now, you probably want to ask, where does Bella, Pennsylvania get the information? This will surprise you. They get it by watching Herb Clark. This is true. The next question, which is obvious, is where does Herb Clark get the information? And the answer to that question is, nobody knows. Maybe it's Dave. The other question that I know that you're going to ask, because this is typical of those people who are getting ready to do this kind of work, especially now, where do you stand in relation to the easel? And this might not seem very important, but I happen to have a chart here that you can look at. Weather forecasters are broken down basically into two different types, left-handed and right-handed. I find I'm right-handed, I stand over here, and I'm in this group here. 23% of the right-handed weather forecasters stand to the right of the easel.
Well, you better put a string on that.
I was supposed to have this come up to my trousers, but my... Hello?
Edie, don't put it up his trousers.
All right, Edie.
Oh, it goes around this way. Now you want to eat it.
Another one of these people.
That's because 6% of the weather forecasters in America happen to be ambidextrous, and we call them switch pointers. Now, since there are so many of you here who are future weathercasters, we're going to have this little question and answer period. If any of you have any questions about the weather or anything of this nature, or about Herb Clark even, please let me hear what your questions are. Yes?
Mr. Ross, does the greenhouse effect really represent a threat?
Yes, because the entire Earth will be burnt to a crisp within 5 years.
Well, do you think that's something that really concerns us?
Are you a skier? I would worry about it. Any other question? Oh, yes.
Yes, is it difficult to determine the speed of wind?
No. It's a breeze.
Well, congratulations, incidentally, on your new job. How does one measure the wind?
One would go to the Philadelphia Orchestra and borrow one of their wind instruments, especially one that's user-friendly.
Can you recommend a good book on the subject?
I would suggest Wuthering Heights. Emily Bronte.
Thank you very much.
Oh, by the way, the person asking the question, I would say that you look like you have the stature for doing this kind of work, but again, you must know that 973 people applied for this job. Your chances of acquiring such work is very difficult. But keep at it.
I have a question.
Oh,
I understand. Oh, before I ask the question, I'd like to mention that Herb tells me he's moving down south somewhere. Name the town. I forgot what it is, but it sounds like a great place to live if you're a banjo. The question. Do you really expect to fill Herb Clark's shoes? And if so, how?
yes, with tissue paper. Are there any other questions? Yes.
I'm going this straight. I want to get the hell out of here.
Excuse me, Mr. Woz, what is your favorite type of clouds?
Oh, I have three favorites. One of my favorites is the Strato-Cirrus, Strato-Cumulus, but my very favorite is the Stradivarius. Another question over here.
Hi, Les. How you doing?
A lot better, thank you.
I'm interested in what is a wind chill factor?
The wind chill factor is this phrase that was created by Walter Winchell when he a story that wasn't too hot.
Have any effect on the ill wind?
Yes. Another question over
Yes, Mr. Woz, what is the foggiest place on Earth?
Nobody knows, because it's so foggy there that it's impossible for anybody to know where they are because of the fog.
Thank you very much.
In other words, my answer is I haven't the foggiest. Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Well, okay, in conclusion...
Wait a minute, I have one.
Oh, okay.
What indicates an Indian summer?
Apache fog. In conclusion, I heard that. In conclusion, I could say that, and sincerely, if I had my choice of following in the footsteps of any TV weather forecaster in the entire United States, and there are thousands and thousands to choose from, I would select any except Herb Clark. He is one tough act to follow.
Last, before you go, I've just got to tell you, now that you have this job, the first thing you have to learn is that the weatherman only gets 2 minutes and 30 seconds.